Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Amala Purana. This is Canto 1, Chapter 18, and we're going to read 2 verses today to finish off the chapter. Text 49 and 50. Sanskrit for 49. Iti putra trikagena sonutapto mahamuni Swayam viprakrito ragya Naivagam tad achintayat Iti putra kritagena Sonutapto mahamuni Swayam viprakrito ragya Naivagam tad achintayat. Please chant. Let Vijay chant first. That's okay. Sorry. Okay. Go ahead. He says, go ahead.
Iti putra kritagena sonutapto mahamuni Swayam viprakrito ragya Naivagam
tadachintayat. Anyone else?
Sure.
You want to chant? Okay. Sorry.
Iti putra kritagena sonutapto mahamuni Swayam viprakrito ragya Naivagam
tadachintayat. Iti, thus, putra, son, krita, done by, agena, by the sin, sa, he, the muni, anutapta, regretting, mahamuni, the sage, swayam, personally, viprakrita, being so insulted, ragya, by the king, not, eva, certainly, agam, the sin, tat, that, achintayat, thought of it. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The sage thus regretted the sin committed by his own son. He did not take the insult paid by the king very seriously. Purport. The whole incident is now cleared up. Maharaj Parikshit's garlanding the sage with a dead snake was not at all a very serious offense. But Shringi's cursing the king was a serious offense. The serious offense was committed by a foolish child only. Therefore, he deserved to be pardoned by the Supreme Lord, although it was not possible to get free from the sinful reaction. Maharaj Parikshit also did not mind the curse offered to him by a foolish brahmana. On the contrary, he took full advantage of the awkward situation, and by the great will of the Lord, Maharaj Parikshit achieved the highest perfection of life through the grace of Srila Shukadev Goswami. Actually, it was the desire of the Lord, and Maharaj Parikshit, Rishi Shamika, and his son Shringi were all instrumental in fulfilling the desire of the Lord. So none of them were put into difficulty because everything was done in relation with the Supreme Person. Text 50. Prayasha sadavo loke parayadvandveshu yojita navyatanti narishyanti yatha atma gunashrayaha. Generally, the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendently engaged. Purport. The transcendentalists are the empiric philosophers, the mystics, and the devotees of the Lord. Empiric philosophers aim at the perfection of merging into the being of the Absolute. Mystics aim at perceiving the all-pervading supersoul, and the devotees of the Lord are engaged in the transcendental loving service of the personality of Godhead. Since Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are different phases of the same transcendence, all these transcendentalists are beyond the three modes of material nature. Material distresses and happinesses are products of the three modes, and therefore the causes of such material distress and happiness have nothing to do with the transcendentalists. The king was a devotee and the rishi was a mystic. Therefore, both of them were unattached to the accidental incident created by the supreme will. The playful child was an instrument in fulfilling the Lord's will. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Maharaj Parikshit Cursed by a Brahmana Boy. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The whole incident is now cleared up, Prabhupada says. So this boy, he cursed the exalted soul Maharaj Parikshit, but he was just a boy, so there was no, little children are not held accountable for their mistakes and for their wrong activities. And that dates back to the history of Mandavya Muni. We remember from the Mahabharata that Mandavya Muni, he was a great mystic, a great rishi, and he was engaged in meditation. And there were some thieves that were escaping from the police, and they hid in his ashram. And then the police came and they saw this sadhu who's sitting in meditation, legs crossed, eyes half open or closed. And they said, "We're looking for the thieves. Do you know where they are?" But he didn't respond. He was in a deep state of meditation. They searched the ashram and they found the thieves. And then they thought, this is not a sadhu. This is a cheater. He knew the thieves were here. He didn't reveal it. He's also in on it with them. So they also arrested Mandavya of the land, Mandavya Muni. And they took him to the king and said, "These are criminals. Punish them all." The punishment was the punishment of death. I didn't know what their offense was, but the punishment was death. The culture was so strict at that time. You were not allowed to victimize innocent people. That was not permitted. The king would never tolerate such a thing. Nowadays, so many innocent people are constantly being victimized. Children, women, old people, cows. The mark of an advanced civilization, Prabhupada says in a purport, what is it? By how certain people are protected. Who are those classes of people? Children, women, old people, Brahmins, and cows. This is it. This is how you judge a society, by how well it's taking care of these 5 classes of people. So by that criterion, modern society gets an F. And let's be frank, ISKCON needs some work to do in those areas as well. We have a lot of work to do. Sometimes we lose the focus. We think, yes, we must build temples and spread Krishna consciousness. Of course, we have to do that. We have to spread Krishna consciousness. But those who've come into the fold of Krishna consciousness, they have to be taken care of. And so there's certain leaders in our society who are giving great emphasis to that. Devotee care, care of cows. And then Krishna will be pleased. And if Krishna is pleased, then nothing is lacking. That's not possible. Something will be lacking if Krishna is pleased. Krishna is Madhava, husband of the goddess of fortune. All the wealth of the world, people are imagining, I control this wealth, I control that wealth. No one controls any wealth. Only one person controls everything. That's Krishna. Krishna controls everything. All the assets of the whole universe and beyond the universe. Krishna's in charge. And if Krishna is pleased, he can give unlimited facility. Just like he did for Prabhupada. He did it for Prabhupada. It was a miracle. Prabhupada came. How much did he have when he came to America? It's a trick question. How much did Prabhupada have when he came to America? 40 rupees. No.
$20.
Plus $20. That's right. He had 40 rupees and he had $20. How did he get that $20?
Kept in London.
That's right. He sold a set of books. He had 3 books, three Bhagavatams. And so Prabhupada sold. He was the first book distributor in America. And even when he landed in New York, he was still selling books. But he came with 40 rupees and $20. He was penniless, walking around New York. Prabhupada said, just wandering, like, what am I supposed to do? How am I going to accomplish this task? Many times, I don't know how many, but he would go back to the shipping company. When is the next boat back to India? But he thought, no, I cannot fail. My spiritual master has given me an order. I must fulfill the order of my spiritual master. If he went back, no one would have said, oh, you failed. Everyone said, oh, you did something heroic, something glorious, 70 years old, 2 heart attacks, staying in New York with no facilities, no friends, nothing. If he went back, no one would have said, oh, you failed. Everyone said, oh, glorious what you did. But Prabhupada was firmly determined. And then at 1 year wandering around New York, pure devotee, wandering around New York for 1 year, and what was the result? Nothing. Selling a few books here and there, maybe some talk here or there, nothing substantial. And then finally Krishna said, now is the time to fully glorify my pure devotee. And then he met the young people. And from that point on, the Hare Krishna movement just started expanding and expanding. My recollection, Prabhupada was talking to some businessman and he was explaining the miracle. He said, so he was explaining, because in terms they can understand. I came with 40 rupees and $20, and now I've got this many crores. So isn't that a miracle? And the businessmen made their calculation. Yeah, that's miraculous. No one can do that. So that was because Krishna was so pleased. Krishna gave so much facility. So this Mandavya was condemned to die. And what was the condemnation? What was the punishment? They were all to be pierced with a lance, like a spear, right? So he became known as Mandavya of the lance. So all the criminals, they died. But Mandavya is a great rishi. He's a great mystic. He didn't die. And they went to the king and said, this person is not dying. We're piercing him with the lance. And then the king understood, oh my God, what have we done? We've just condemned not only an innocent man, but a great spiritualist. So he went and he begged forgiveness from Mandavya, and they tried to take this spear out of his body, and somehow the spear broke as they were trying to take out, I don't know what it was made of, wood or I don't know. And part of the lance, part of the spear remained in his body. He became known as Mandavya of the lance. So he endured that condition for the rest of his life, carried on with his spiritual practice, saying, okay, Krishna, God, that's what you sent me. Okay, I accept it. Then he was trying to understand, what did I do to deserve such a consequence? So he went to Yamaraj and said, Yamaraj, I don't remember doing anything so bad that I deserved to be pierced with a lance. And Yamaraj said, well, when you were a small boy, you pierced a bug with a straw, a piece of straw. You willfully did it. Huh? You were inflicting pain on that bug. And Mandavya said, For that offense, when I was a small boy, you're condemning me to be pierced with a lance later? This is nonsense. You're supposed to be Yamaraj, the Dharmaraj, the knower of Dharma. And it seems you don't understand Dharma at all. I curse you. You're not thinking like a Yamaraj, you're thinking like a Shudra. Take birth as a Shudra. Yamaraj was happy with that curse because he got to take birth as Vidura and participate in the pastimes of Krishna and get a little bit of relief from his difficult service of condemning souls. Every Vaishnava wants to be in the position of blessing souls. And Yamaraj is sitting on his throne. All the sinful people are coming up to him, and he has to give them condemnation. He has to send them to the different types of hells and to their next embodiments. It's not such a desirable service. Certain devotees have very difficult service. Just like a Krura, that's not a very nice service. That's a tough service. What's your service? I take Krishna away from the Vrajbasis. Wow. So he cursed him. And so from that time on, little children were not held accountable according to the dharmic code of the universe. Little children were not held accountable for their transgressions. So all of this was enacted by the will of the Lord. And that's how Maharaj Parikshit took it. Normally, a person who's about to lose anything becomes disturbed and tries to counteract the situation. Maharaj Parikshit, what did he have? He had everything. He was the emperor of the whole planet. He had the adoration of all the citizens on the planet. He had more wealth than one can calculate. And suddenly, it was all going to be taken away. And he had 7 days to live. And by his spiritual intelligence, he could understand, yes, this is the grace of Krishna. This is the will of the Lord. This is the attitude of a devotee. A devotee knows, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha, that everything is being conducted by the sweet, loving will of the Lord. So anything that happens to a devotee, the devotee takes it that this is for my good. This is for my benefit. This is for my upliftment. As difficult as the circumstance is, Yasyaham Anugranami Harishye Taddanam Shanai. So much so that if Krishna is especially merciful towards someone, then he takes everything away. What looks to the ordinary vision as something horrible, a curse of God. Oh, this person is cursed by God. They had everything and now they've lost everything. The material calculation is, oh, very unfortunate. But actually that person is being given the greatest blessing, because in that condition, the devotee finds himself helpless and everyone has rejected him, and then the devotee finds no other shelter except the real shelter, Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in Sharanagati, he writes, sometimes, O Lord, you take away those I love. And what happens when you take away those I love? My heart cries out in pain. It's not that Krishna takes away someone that's very dear to you, and then it's like, okay, devotees are not stoic. They're not stone-hearted. They're not, they're full of emotion. Their heart is very soft. So the devotee cries out in pain. But later I see you have taken them to turn my heart fully to you. So that's the whole program. The whole program of Krishna, and he's been in this business a really, really long time, is that when a soul turns their face towards Krishna and says, God, I want you. I want to reconnect with you. Krishna says, okay. Prabhupada says in the Nectar of Instruction, once having begun the process of Krishna consciousness, what does Prabhupada say? One is forcibly dragged to success. Forcibly dragged to success. Krishna is making all the arrangements with his unlimited intelligence, and he's doing it in a way which is customized for each devotee, for each devotee. So we can't see the big picture. We're playing checkers and Krishna's playing chess, 10 steps ahead or 100 steps ahead. And we're just thinking in terms of the immediate situation, and we're making the calculation based on that. If I was to have it my way, like, what do I need? What does Taradas need for my welfare, for my, good life, for my upliftment, my life would look much different. My life would be very smooth. I would have my Krishna consciousness, and I would have all my comforts in place. And I have some idea of, what would be the right life for me, even let's say for my son, right? I have my son. And so naturally I'm thinking, well, I want to do what's best for my son, in the mood of a father. But what do I know what's best for my son? If it was up to me, my son would have no hardships in life, no tribulations, right? Just a smooth, comfortable path, and be Krishna conscious. But that's not what my son needs. My son needs what's required for him to grow, to become purified, to become sober, to become thoughtful, to become detached. So Krishna knows that. Krishna knows the exact formula for every living being. And for every living being, it can be something different. So the devotee has that firm conviction that Krishna is the topmost well-wisher, and whatever's happening in my life is Krishna's grace. And that was Maharaj Parikshit's attitude. Everything was going to be lost, and Maharaj Parikshit said, yes, this is Krishna's grace. I renounce everything. I go to the bank of the Ganga, and I hear from Shukadev Goswami. Like that. So there was a lot of regret floating around. Who was regretting? Well, Maharaj Parikshit was regretting. He was out in the forest hunting, and then he made a mistake. He was thirsty, and when you're thirsty or hungry, the mind can become a little bit disturbed. Of course, this is all by the internal energy of the Lord. Maharaj Parikshit's a pure devotee, so there's no question of him becoming disturbed by thirst or by hunger. His consciousness will always be transcendent. But by the arrangement of the Lord, he became a little bit disturbed. This rishi, this mystic is not receiving me properly. Why not? I'm coming. The Vedic cultures, if someone comes to you, you must receive them. You must receive them. You receive them with at least the minimum you have to offer, the maximum you have to offer. If you're totally poor, you give them a place to sit. You give them a glass of water. You give them some sweet words. If you have more facility, then you offer more facility. This rishi, this mystic, is sitting there. He's not even paying attention to me. I'm thirsty. He's not even offering me a glass of water. So he became a little upset. He wrapped a snake around the mystic's head, and he went off. And then afterwards, immediately, he felt regret. This is the mood, the consciousness of a devotee. A devotee is always introspective and thoughtful and considering, how am I conducting my affairs? How am I walking through life? How am I interacting with other living entities? Did I interact with that living entity in an appropriate way? Because what is the devotee trying to do? What are we trying to do? We're trying to become fit to live in the spiritual world. Those who are not fit to live in the spiritual world, they live in the material world, right? The conditioned souls, all colliding with each other, bumping each other, assaulting each other, mistreating each other. That's the material world. But in the spiritual world, it's perfect harmony. It's perfect interactions. So we're doing our best to refine our consciousness. Not only refine our consciousness, but refine our interactions. So as a devotee is walking through life, they're always thoughtful about how they're interacting with not only devotees. What to speak of devotees? Devotees, be extra careful with interacting with devotees because they're very dear to Krishna. Devotees are very dear to Krishna. Kanishta Adhikari means that he just sees God. And if he sees devotees, he's done. This is Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, and almost doesn't see anyone else. Almost doesn't see anyone else. But that's not a good platform. That's a platform where a lot of offenses can be committed. No. The real platform is to see the soul and the super soul in all living entities, right? That's the Bhagavatam is recommending something radical. 11th canto of the Bhagavatam is saying that how should you interact with other living entities? You should pay dandavats to every living entity. Bhagavatam, 11th canto. Doesn't mean you're just laying on the floor all day long. You won't get any seva done. But at least in the mind. Why? Because the mind is crooked. The mind is is material. So the mind is always making the differentiation. Here's someone who's pleasing. Here's someone who's qualified. Here's someone who has assets. Here's someone who has qualifications. Some respect, some appreciation. Here's someone whose modes of nature are pleasing to me. Here's someone who's the opposite. Dismiss that person, pay no attention, pay no regard. This is the nature of the mind. So we correct that by following the advice of the Bhagavatam. We walk through life and we're always seeing that inside of every living being, regardless of what the external covering is, there's the soul and the super soul. Always remembering that every living entity is a temple of God. And then one is safe. One is safe. Why was I talking about this? I even forget.
Because you're talking about regret.
Regret, yes. So we're walking through life and circumstances arise. And sometimes we react to those circumstances in a way which later we think, oh, you know what? I could have responded to that situation in a softer way. And when you're raising kids, none of you have this challenge. That's a blessing. When you're raising kids, you experience this very acutely. The kids at a certain age, or even at every age, they push your buttons, clean your room. Clean your room, son. Clean your room. Clean your room. And afterwards you regret. You think, okay, maybe I could have dealt with that situation with a lower tone of voice, with a softer attitude, in order to achieve the same results. So the devotee is always very conscious. How am I relating to other living entities? And this is the training. And so then that lesson is imbibed, and then we try to do it better next time. We try to do better next time. We try to do better next time. And then we observe the way that sadhus, saints, walk through this world. They walk through this world very, very with an attitude of meekness and humility and respect and care and consideration. In the Bhagavad Gita, 12th chapter, Krishna is giving those very powerful instructions on the devotees that are very dear to him, right? And one of the instructions he gives is that one who is not disturbed by anyone, that's a tough one, not disturbed by anyone, and who does not disturb anyone is very dear to me. So at least we aspire for that. We're constantly refining our consciousness, refining our behavior, as opposed to the materialist who's always has an excuse why they did it, isn't it? Yes, I exploded at this person. I did something really harsh to this person, but it's all justified. It's all justified. This is what they did to me. Because the materialistic person and the part of us that's materialistic is conducted by the false ego. False ego, I'm right about everything. I'm who I am. I'm the special person. I'm supposed to be the enjoyer, and everything is supposed to be arranged for my enjoyment, for my comfort. Well, that's not how the world works at all. So Maharaj Parikshit was regretful. What have I done? I've lost my temper. I've lost control of my senses, and I've put a dead snake around a sadhu. What was I thinking? He felt a deep regret in his heart. And Samika Rishi, he also was very deeply regretful. He said, what was this? This was not an offense. This is a great king, a great devotee, and he's committed some minor transgression. And my son, who I was supposed to train with the proper understanding of life, has cursed this person to die. For what? For putting a snake around my neck? He felt deep regret. So this is always the attitude of someone who's progressing. Not affected by the dualities of this world. And Prabhupada here mentions that those three categories of spiritualists who are above the material platform. The impersonalists, not the Mayavadis, the Brahmavadis. Mayavadis are just offenders. They're just rascals. Denying the form of the Lord, denying that Krishna's real, just nonsense. The Brahmavadis, they just haven't come to the platform of understanding the personal form of the Lord. Brahmabhuta prasannatma nashochati nakangshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktin lavate param. That's the spiritual platform. Prasannatma, fully joyful. Like, who can even imagine that? Who can even imagine what that means? You ask people who have some good karma, are you happy? Oh yeah, I'm happy. They don't know what happiness is. That's not happiness. That, sense gratification, or life is kind of smooth, or maybe some taste of the mode of goodness. That's not happiness. Real happiness means nashochati nakangshati. There's no material desires in the heart, nothing. Because the material desires are just like an internal harassment. It's like having a roommate, who's always just, speaking very loudly and turning on loud music and constantly bringing up some stupid topic, and you can't escape the room. You're stuck with that darn roommate. The only time you get some peace maybe is when you're sleeping, right? And then you wake up and immediately the roommate's there. Hi, good morning. Here's all the things that you need to be worried about. All the desires, all the anxieties, all the troubles. The mind is constantly churning. There's not a moment of peace. But the materialist is thinking, no, I'm happy. No, you're not happy. Nashochati nakangshati. There's no desires. It's just complete stillness, complete calm. And there's no lamentation over what I think I've lost. Fully joyful. And what about the yogi? The yogi is described in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where through the process of Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, what's the result? The result is that the yogi perceives the form of God within the heart. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. Now here's the symptoms of that. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self, the Supreme Lord, by the pure mind, and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Material enjoyment always means, what's next? What's next? What's next? But the yogi who sees God within the heart, he doesn't think, what's next? That's it. There's no next. He's seeing Vishnu within the heart. There is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. So the impersonalist and the perfected yogi, they are transcendental to the material existence. They're not bothered by what's happening on the material platform, by the dualities of life, and they're experiencing the deepest, profound happiness. Except there's a platform which is unlimitedly beyond that platform. Inconceivably, really, isn't it? And that's the platform which comes from loving Krishna. If one has love of Krishna, then those other pleasures, the pleasures of the impersonalist and the pleasure of the yogi, is nothing. It's just nothing. It's like a drop compared to an ocean. We were reading the Damodar Leela, and we'll finish with this. So, in the Damodar Leela, Mother Yashoda, she punished Krishna. And Krishna, of course, is innocent. He's Krishna, he's innocent. He's a little child. I didn't do it, No, I'm falsely accused. So there was a little bit of a tension, spiritual tension between Mother Yashoda and Krishna. Krishna took shelter of Nanda Maharaj, and he was upset with Mother Yashoda because she bound him. And finally there was a reconciliation, and Krishna came back into the arms of Mother Yashoda. This is love of God. The aggregate of all the happiness in the world, the totality of all the happiness in the world, when multiplied 1,000,000 times, could not match a drop of the ecstasy that Mother Yashoda felt with Krishna in her arms. And if the aggregate of all the love in the world was multiplied 1,000,000 times, it could not match a drop of the love that Krishna felt from Yashoda's embrace. So this is our goal. Our goal is to love Krishna. That's it. Because that is the goal. That's it. That's the whole program of human life. That's the thing which has been missing every life. And people are missing that every life. Imagine what lousy students everyone is. Imagine if you just have to keep going back to the same class, the same grade, and you never graduate. It's crazy. So the only lesson is that this is not our home. We don't belong here. Our real life is to love Krishna and be in Goloka Vrindavan with Krishna and all the residents of Vrindavan. And so that's what we're doing. We're just qualifying ourselves, and we're bringing as many people as possible with us. That's the program. That's Prabhupada's program. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. We have 2 minutes. Yes, Prabhu.
One of the things you mentioned at the end, bro, you said that we need to graduate different classes. So even our chanting is the same. We chant the same mantra, but just like how ABC for kindergarten is alphabets, and then for middle schooler is algebra, and for a high schooler is calculus. So they do the same ABC, but then it means different things as they make progress. So even though we're chanting the same mantra, the realization that we have will grow as we make spiritual progress. So I want to just reflect on that.
Thank you. It's a nice reflection. We don't trust what we're experiencing while chanting the holy name. Hopefully we're experiencing some progressive appreciation of the holy name and some ability to chant with more attention. But the real experience of chanting the holy name is something completely different. It's described by Rupa Goswami. It's described by King Kulashekar. It's described by the great saints. Prabhupada was asked a question. He was walking, I think it was in Africa, maybe Kenya, and the devotee said, Prabhupada, how do we know if our rounds are quality rounds? Prabhupada said, there's no question of quality. You have a duty. You chant 16 rounds. I'm paraphrasing. And the devotee was walking, but trying to understand, how do we know if it's quality rounds? Prabhupada, how do we know if they're quality rounds? Prabhupada said, there is no question of quality. You simply chant your 16 rounds. And then the devotee still didn't get it. He said, you will know it is quality when you think, why 16 rounds? Why not 16,000 rounds? Then you know you have quality. Such a taste will be there in the heart to chant the holy name that one becomes like an addict, just relishing so wonderfully the holy name. I don't know if Prabhupada 16,000 or 16 million, I don't remember. But the point was there. Big, huge number. So we give our best effort. And our best effort is accepted by Krishna. Krishna he's so kind, he's so generous, he's so magnanimous that he just sees the effort. Just like a father just sees the effort of the child. So Krishna is father times a million, mother times a million. Krishna just sees the effort of the living entity, and he makes up for what we lack. Yes, that's Krishna. Krishna makes up for what we lack. Whatever shortcoming is there, Krishna compensates for that shortcoming. That's his nature. He can't help it because his heart is only full of love. That's Krishna, the most wonderful person.